Hello everyone, welcome back to Minutes in Maya, where we go over tips, tricks, and tools you can do in Autodesk Maya. Today we are continuing going through all of the primitives you can create in Maya. In the last video we made a cube primitive. Today we are going to be going over the options that you can do when you are creating a cylinder. So let's go ahead and go up and create a cylinder. Again, there are a few ways you can do this. You can choose the cylinder icon in your poly modeling shelf. You can go to create polygon primitives cylinder, or you can hold shift and right click and pick whip a cylinder option. I'm going to go ahead and open up the option window and then just hit apply. And we have a basic cylinder here. For today's video, I'm going to go over all the options in the input tab just because it gives it a little bit more of a interactive scene instead of just trying to create a new cylinder over and over. So the first option that you have when you are working with your cylinder is this radius option. This radius option just determines on how large our cylinder is across the circular radius of it. So if I was to drag this out a little bit, you can see that I'm growing this cylinder a lot larger than it was initially. If I bring it down to something like this, 0.1, maybe let's put this at 0.5. It is a lot smaller than it was originally. The second option that we have is the height. This determines the vertical length of the cylinder. If I was to drag this out along the values like this, I can make it a much taller cylinder, or I can make it a bit shorter, almost completely flat. Now you can't make this completely flat. You always have a little bit of geometry in between the top faces and the bottom faces, because this is a full 3D object. If I wanted to create a fully flat cylindrical or fully flat circle-like object here, I would probably just use the disk function. Let's go ahead and undo that real quick. The third option that you have available to you is the axis divisions or the axis divisions. Here you change how many different axes are running along the vertical length of the object. So if I was to go to my axis divisions here in my input tab and drag this up, as you can see, there are more axes if I drag this up to 50 here. If I bring this down, I can bring it all the way down to 3. Now, because of just how 3D objects work, I can't go any lower than 3. Otherwise, this would just be a flat plane here. But you can go anywhere from 3 to basically infinity. Let's go ahead and undo that. The next option we have are the height divisions or height subdivisions. This changes the horizontal divisions that we have along our cylinder. By default, I don't have any along this length here, but if I was to pull this up here, I can add in more along this length here. And the last option here is the subdivisions along the cap. Now these are the rings around the center here. By default, you're just going to have one, which isn't going to give you a ton of extra rings, just this one along this edge here. If I was to pull this up along here, I can add in a lot of rings around the cap. This also does the rings around the cap on the bottom as well. So make sure that you are aware of that when you are creating that. Now this one is very important when you are using this next function here, which is the round cap option. So right now we don't have anything set up for a round cap, but if I was to go ahead and turn this on like this, you can see now it's kind of pointed up like this. And this is what the basis is for creating something more along the lines of a pill or a cylinder with round caps here. By default, it's just going to be set to a flat cap or off here. And this is where adding in more divisions along your subdivision cap come into play. When you don't have any extra divisions here, it's just going to create this kind of pointed structure like this, since there's only one bit of geometry to work with, or 2 bits of geometry to work with, the middle point and the end point here. But if we start adding in caps here, you can see that we've kind of pulled this along to a sort of pill-like structure or capsule-like structure to work with here. Now we also have the UV options here. Let's go ahead and bring up our UV editor window. Now by default, you're going to have normalize on, which is going to add in divisions that divide up. The way that the UVs are divided up here is that it'll put the cap, the cap and the length on two separate UV sheets here, and then put them all within one UV tile. If I was to go ahead and click off to normalization off, it's going to size these up so that each individual UV shape is going to take up an entire UV tile. If I was to go ahead and put on normalize on, it's going to keep them in this area here, but it's going to try and use up as much of the space as I have possible. And if I was to go ahead and change it to normalize and preserve aspect ratio, this is going to try and keep it as clean and as close to the original dimensions of the object as it has been projected onto the UVs. And then just like we had with our cube and our sphere, you can change the base axis orientation of your object on creation. Here, there's not really an option that you can change on your input tab, but if I was to go ahead and click X, hit apply, you can see this is now oriented around the X axis. If I was to change it to Z and hit apply, you can see it's oriented around the Z axis. All right, so those are the options that you have when you are creating a cylinder primitive. In the next video, we will be going over the cone primitive. Until next time, see ya.